Morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody. Welcome to this edition of the STARS webinars. I'm Tony Schönenberg, I'm the Executive Chairman of STARS. Today, we have the privilege to talk to Eliana ZAMPROGNA. Eliana, welcome, good to have you on this webinar. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Tony, my pleasure.
Eliana is the co-founder of Yumame Foods. She will certainly be talking about her company later on. Before, Eliana was CTO at Migros and held leadership positions at Boulogne. She also serves on the board of startups and is involved in innovation networks globally. Eliana holds a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Padua in Italy. And last but not least, I should mention Eliana is a STARS alumna.
Indeed.
No doubt, we live in a disruptive world. Just think of climate change, pandemic, the war in Ukraine, all the challenges connected to supply chains. And we are expecting 10 billion people in 2050. A major disruption is happening in the food sector. We have to radically rethink the way we produce and consume food globally. Talking about plant-based food, we are talking about cultured food, about cultivated food. We even talk about vertical ocean and vertical farming. Eliana will give us now a short presentation into this topic, and then we have a Q&A session. If you have any questions for Eliana, please use the raise hand function, and then you can ask your question later on. Let's start. Eliana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tony, for this very kind introduction and for this opportunity after a few years from my participation to the symposium. To walk you through the topics that you have already mentioned is very strong stress on our food system. I have a couple of slides. Let me share them now. So let's see if this works well. It should be there with you now. Yeah. So our food system is in a stress, and you, Tony, you mentioned basically all the critical points on the table today. Pictures speak more than 1,000 words. The system is supposed to nourish more people in the future, but it has already reached its limit today. It is a burden to the climate, and it is at the mercy of the climate change. And it is also shown to be quite fragile as soon as unexpected events, disruptive events happen, like the recent history has shown. The problem is actually already in our houses, and this is these topics are very close to my heart. You see, for instance, this picture there with the arid land. It is not a land in Africa. It's a place, the place where I come from originally. It's the north of Italy, and this is the Po River, which is the most important water supply to agriculture there. And it gives food to more than 30 million people. Now, this river is at the lowest level of water supply that it typically has in August, and it is this week. So the problems are in our house, and we have to find a way to go into solutions. While we probably see that politics is still discussing on whether there is a problem and how to solve it, I think we consumers have become already aware, and we have started to take actions. And one of the actions that we are seeing is that we shift our diets toward products that are less cumbersome for our system, less heavy, with a lower footprint. One shift that has been in front of our eyes in the last few years is definitely the shift away from animal products, animal-based products like meat, fish, milk, toward other types of products. Now, probably you've seen in all the places where you are located today. In Europe, this has been quite a strong trend. All of our retailers have increased on their shelves the number of products that are of plant origin. You find today meat alternatives, fish alternatives, yogurts of of plant origins milk alternatives. And every week there is something new. This is clear for Europe. I can imagine it is the same for all the geographies in which you are located. These new products are made by the established food companies, Nestle, Unilever, Danone, and the like. But there is also a large number of new companies that have been born and started with the idea, with the focus of providing solutions in this space. And you can see this trend by looking at the amount of venture capital that has gone into these newcomers, into these startups in the last years. That's shown there in a clear exponential plot that shows the amount of capital in the space of alternative proteins from the Good Food Institute. The lion part of that of those hundreds of millions go into plant-based companies. But there are two other areas that are emerging and are gaining traction, the area of cultivated food and the one of fermentation. And I'm going to touch upon these two just in a moment. But I say this is a clear trend. I think we consumers are now leading the change, and it's surely very good. As Migros put it on here in Switzerland, it's the retailer in Switzerland, one of the two largest retailers, put it on our ad. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. So it's definitely one very important step. There is one lever we can use. Should we think we are done? I would say no. There is quite a lot of potential still in this area for innovation, for more interesting and better products. Products we have there, they reach, most of them, a very good taste, very good textures. Some of them still fall into the chapter of ultra processed food because they're quite loaded in processing and ingredients. Some of them still have very long supply chains, so there is the potential to make them more local and also less wasteful when it comes to the production process, particularly for the protein part. So here still large space for innovation and for brilliant companies coming into this space. This is not the only lever we have. The second lever is called cellular agriculture, what we call cultivated food. It's a different approach. In that approach, we don't try to reproduce meat by taking plant ingredients and transform them into meat or animal product looking products like it is for the plant-based food. In the cellular agriculture approach, actually the meat is produced by taking cells from the animal and reproducing them, cultivating them, harvesting them. That means basically it's the real meat without slaughtering of the animal. This is a picture where you can see how these cells look like and when they are cultivated and harvested. It is a real picture from the company Aleph Farms, which has been early on in this journey and with which I have collaborated during my time at Migros. Already 2 years ago, I had the chance to eat a small piece of cultivated beef. So it is possible to have this kind of products, but it will take still time. In my view, it will take a journey of 5 to 10 years to really reach a larger market because there are few challenges still. It is particularly in the scalability of the process and the reduction of the costs, and also eliminating really all animal components in the production, and the regulatory part is still quite undefined. How will these products be regulated and named? So quite a long path ahead, but potential is there. So we have plant-based food, we have cellular agriculture. We say here in Switzerland, all good things are three. And indeed, there is a third way, in my view. It is fermentation. And I very much second the opinion of several studies, one of them from the WEF, that says that fermentation can become the third pillar to turn into a more sustainable food system. Why, would you ask? Fermentation is old stuff, right? The sauerkraut of our grandmother. No, fermentation, actually it is an old technology. And it has been proven now for centuries, but it has in itself those characteristics that make it able to tackle those challenges we have said before. We need more natural products, more local products, and more resilient technology. And fermentation has demonstrated to be able to enhance taste and nutritional value of food in a natural way. Think about the taste of wine coming from fermentation, or the better digestibility of sourdough bread. It can be done in any place in the world, at scale, so it can be local. And the third point, it is resilient because it doesn't need agricultural land to be performed. It doesn't need a special weather to act. So you see, there is a good match between what fermentation is inherently able to do and what kind of answers we need to the system. And there are now, I would say, there is much more than the sauerkraut at that time. There are three ways in which we can use fermentation as a lever. The one we know with the wine, beer, sauerkraut, and the like, the yogurt, and so on, is the traditional fermentation, called also microbial fermentation. There, the fermenting microorganisms is put on the food, and they transform the food for better taste and better nutrient profile. I said wine, beer, cheese, yogurt, tempeh in Asia. There are many, many examples of that. And there are new companies using that with new ideas. Then we have the whole biomass fermentation. There, the microorganism is used, cultivated and the microorganism mass itself, the biomass, becomes food. A pioneer was corn with this approach. And then there is a third way, which is the more I would say the newest way. It is precision fermentation, where the microorganism is tuned. Normally it requires genetical engineering, and it becomes a biofactory with its metabolism to produce a certain component. An example are companies that are producing milk proteins through bacteria that have been re-engineered to do that. So we can act on all these three different ways of using fermentation, and there are already several companies that are doing that. Here a couple of pictures from those startups, from fermented plant-based cheese through bacon and meat that comes from fermented fungi, and then like ice cream without the cow, and or collagen without the animal. I strongly believe in the power of fermentation. This is why I also went into this space with my own venture recently. And the approach of my company is to combine fermentation with fungi by using, therefore, a strong force of fermentation to enhance nutrients and nutritional value, and the power of fungi to make textures and structures in a very natural way. And the ultimate aim is to make products that are good in taste, but also healthy, local, and minimally processed. Early in its journey, but the ambition is high. Still many challenges also for fermentation are remaining, and will need more investment. We are still just scratching the surface because there are really million of organisms that have not been yet investigated for their potential. And there are similar questions as in cellular agriculture on how this can be used at the industrial scale, how end products will look like for the consumers, and also how the regulatory path will be. So challenges ahead, but I hope you could sense my optimism that yes, we have three very strong avenues that make possible for us for the industry to turn the system into a more sustainable one. And I think the mission can be reached, and it's a path that is in our hands. I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts in this space that you could feel I'm very passionate of. And yeah, thank you already for your interest.
Thank you very much, Eliana. Great insights. Maybe we could start the discussion, and I would like to encourage everybody to raise hands and ask your own questions. Perhaps I could start with a couple of questions. Eliana, the advantages you mentioned are obvious. No or less animals will be needed, much less CO2 emissions, less water, energy waste, etc. No antibiotics, I suppose, more resilient supply chains, better food security, etc. What are the real challenges then? Or the other question would be, why is this industry not very much faster?
Well, I think there are different speeds in these different three areas. I think the plant-based industry is running very fast. And if we could see some really stellar development of newcomers, if you think about companies like Beyond Meat, within less than 10 years, they've really done a great development. So the space of plant-based is quite fast and spreading across the world. For cellular agriculture and fermentation, I think the speed is lower. The speed of capital investment is high, but there are still quite many technological challenges in the scalability, in cost optimization, and for some areas like Europe, the regulatory pathway will take time. In other countries like US or Asia, some of these, for instance, cellular-based products are already in the market as tests. And Europe is still quite long into the regulatory path discussion. So there are different speeds in different areas. I would say plant-based food has the turbo speed, and the other two areas are gearing up for high speed. With challenges ahead.
What is actually the potential of plant-based food and also the cultivated food? Let's think of 2025 or 2030. What is the potential of it?
Well, I think in to 2025 or 2030, I think that meat and animal products will still be on our table. They will probably play a different role with less amount and better quality. My perspective for 2025 is that we will see more products of plant-based origin that are sustainable, more sustainable, and more healthy. Still not compromising in taste. For 2030, my hope is that we will have breakthroughs also for cellular agriculture products, and that the fermentation-based products will also have become known to the public and accepted to a larger scale.
But this would certainly pose a serious threat to farmers, to meat producers. What is to be expected?
Well, I think it will pose a very good challenge to those meat producers and farmers that are tuned to large-scale exploitation production of big amounts at cheap level. This is a challenge for these. Normally, these are big consolidated groups, because if they're not able to shift to a different, better solution. For the ones who are able to see it as an opportunity, I think meat producers have a great opportunity. They know a lot how to process meat. And this knowledge can be now applied to plant-based ingredients to make excellent products resembling meat, for instance. There are good examples of that already, like the Tyson food in the US is along this path. Even in Europe with the company Roggenwalder Mühle in Germany, they have announced, it's a meat company originally, but they have announced last year that they have now more business for their plant-based portfolio than from their traditional meat portfolio. So it's a fantastic, actually, opportunity that emerged for the company. And I think for farmers, as I said, the ones who are focused on high quality production with animal ethic, the need for these products will grow. That means they could come out of a niche and serve a larger market. The challenge will be for the ones who think that cheap meat with no care for the environment will survive, because I think this is going to be like the dinosaur.
Okay. There is a first question from Uli Frey. He is the director of Fundes International. Uli, please.
Thanks very much. My question is more on the marketing and sales on the downstream side. I guess if you don't make major efforts on making this a better known technique, you will be in trouble selling it.
Yeah, absolutely. The information to the consumer needs to be to us all consumers, getting us acquainted with these new type of foods as to start basically already now, even if products will come out maybe in years from now. And I see the companies in this space, in the space of cellular agriculture, for instance, they are aligned together in consortia to speak this kind of language, to understand how can we better communicate already now what our technology is about, how can we best communicate to the consumer. And I think this is a very good approach to start early with this communication, way before, as you said, that there are products on the shelves.
There is another question from Doris Albisser. She's the executive chairman of Value Globe in Zurich, and she's asking, to what extent could our farmers' lobby hinder the speed of the development of these new products? And how can we mitigate this challenge?
It's a very good question, particularly for Switzerland, because the farmer lobby is so strong and so well represented. I think I think there is not a golden rule to solve it. I think the best way is to involve the farmer lobby and the farmer associations into the equation of the possible winner team. Basically, already now there are strong initiatives in Switzerland that try to make Switzerland a forefront country in the space of cultivated food, in the space of fermentation. You have heard probably the Protein Association that has the Alternative Protein Association that has been born some time ago, as well as the consortium that Migros, Givaudan, Bühler has created for cultivated food, to create a cultivated food platform. If the farmers associations are open to it, they could join these kind of platforms very early and then understand how can the farmer, with its knowledge and its assets, be part of that. And there is not yet, I would say, a written script. So the early these associations join the space, the better it is for the consortium as a whole. And I have to admit, I come from a different country, but my surprise is that the farmer associations, the farmers in general in Switzerland, they are extremely innovative. And they have early discovered, you know, the selling the 0 kilometer food is being here much faster into the market than in other countries. So this innovation geist can actually make the farmer associations become having a leading role in this transition.
There's another question from Professor Gordana Kirans. She is a professor at the Shenzhen Technology University in Shenzhen, China. Gordana.
Sorry, I'm outside, so sorry for the background. Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you for the presentation. Quick question about longitudinal studies around the health implications, and because it is different for our bodies. So what is the research saying about the beyond meat concept, about fermentation, microbes, and all that?
Yeah, there are already many studies around fermentation, particularly in the traditional space of fermentation, that prove the effects of fermentation in terms of enriching the profile of the nutrients of food, enriching the digestibility of food. So I think in the fermentation space, there is really a large literature already showing in the different areas of fermentation that the benefits are available when the proper microorganisms are used. For the plant-based space, I think this type of literature is still young. There are not many studies that address the question, how healthy are the plant-based products, like the plant-based burgers. For sure, there is more and more attention now to look at how long has been the processing and how heavy has been the processing that has led to these products. And there is indeed quite a long chain of processing steps to come from, from a soybean to a meat-looking burger based on soy. This takes quite many steps to extract the proteins, to then texturize these proteins, to mix them with ingredients, and to have them at the end delivered on the table. And therefore, the shorter this process, the better probability is to preserve the nutritional characteristics of that raw material from the beginning. And there definitely more in literature is necessary to see how do then the product behave in our metabolism. This is quite a new type of products, and therefore the literature is still quite thin there.
There is another question from Markus Neuhaus. He's the Vice Chairman of Barry Callebaut and Vice Chairman of STARS. Please, Markus.
Actually, I didn't ask a question, but I have a question anyway, because I'm also on the board of another company where we're actually the largest producer of plant-based products in Switzerland. The Fredag, you may know this from your time.
Yeah.
And we have started to be engaged in this business more than 20 years ago. So sometimes it's a bit perceived to be quite new, but it has quite a long tradition. One question is always, of course, why do people want to eat kind of meat replacement? If they don't want to eat meat, why don't they eat something else, which is vegetable or other products? So I think that's a fundamental question which I think is on the table. And you also referred to a burger, but if a burger is not a real burger, then why would people also in future continue to eat non-real burgers and not something else? And I was also wondering what your views are, whether we are really talking about replacement in future of kind of meat, or whether we just eat something different, which also tastes well.
Yeah, I very much see this point. Just to give you to confirm, for instance, the effort of my new company is not to recreate a product that looks like meat or looks like a sausage, but it is a product in itself, desirable in the taste, but it doesn't want to copy a meat. I think there is more and more of these kind of consumers. Actually, many people that is speak to is actually, we have these products on the shelves, but I don't need them to taste, to fake meat, to tell me it is meat while it is not. And there I think there is a space that still can be fulfilled by companies. If you think one of the companies I showed in the slides is a startup which is looking at tempeh. It's a traditional Asian food, and they wanted to make it in a European way so that tempeh can taste well and it is palatable for our eating culture. I think this kind of approach is quite smart. And it is possible probably also to solve that issue of high processing, which is otherwise for the meat copies. I very much see that there could be really something new that comes to the market.
There's another question from Peter Wirdl. He's the CEO of Waypoint. Could the availability of recipes be a catalysator or even a precondition for new products like fermented food?
Yes, so it goes back to the other very good question on how to educate, how to inspire the consumers. It's always a help if we as a consumer can go to the internet and look at a YouTube video with a good recipe that teaches us how to make a new food. I do the same when I, for instance, try to make a tofu in a good way. And I think this effort to making new recipes, propagating them, making them known to the larger public is, for me, it's a very smart way of how to inspire consumers, make the products closer at the hand. Definitely nowadays with the digitalization, this is even faster.
We are running out of time, so my last question would be, or maybe there is another one by Alan Jensen first. Alan is from Danfoss, based in Malaysia. Alan, please put forward your question.
Thanks, Tony and Diana. Very interesting. My question is, what role does temperature control play in the production of these precision fermented products?
Well, as Danfoss, you are masters of control. The temperature control in general, the control of the conditions, temperature, humidity, is paramount, particularly for fermentation, for cellular agriculture as well. Although there the control of the nutrients become a very important element as well. So controlling what is the fluid in which the cells grow. Temperature control is very important because it defines the boundaries where the microorganisms work well and where they do not. And these boundaries are sometimes very narrow, and therefore it will become even more important, I think, in the future to have well-controlled systems, maybe intelligent control system with feedback or feed-forward control loops to be able that the process runs in the optimal range of conditions and therefore most efficiently.
Now, Eliana, we are running out of time, as I said before. Therefore, my final question, what other trends in food innovation do you see?
Well, I think I see trends across the whole value chain, from land to consumers. Just maybe to have a couple of words landing here, precision farming, I think, is making long stretches ahead. In terms of food production, the packaging part is bubbling with innovation regarding how to make packaging more sustainable, as well as how to make food safety better. So food safety processes is bubbling of innovation. And then more toward the consumer, I see innovation in the way in which the consumer can buy the food. So not only in the stationary retailer as we used to do, but with other forms like digital delivery models, or maybe the revival of door-to-door selling. If we think about the success of startups like Picnic in England, or even here in Switzerland, Farmy, different ways in which the food comes to our door. I see their innovation in the end part, without thinking about all the digital part which can be applied to food for traceability and transparency.
Great. We have to come to an end, Eliana. Thank you very much for your brilliant insights. I think we all learned a lot about disruptive developments, particularly in the food sector. I wish you and your new company all the best and every success.
Thank you. The pleasure has been mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next webinar will be with Drew Thompson just in a week from now. He's from Lee Kuan Yew School in Singapore, and he will be speaking about geopolitics. His title is Expect the Unexpected, Geostrategy for Businesses. I hope to see you there. Goodbye and take care.